Okay. All right, everyone. I know there's a lot of feelings, a lot of people are coming in from different spaces, but we hope we can be centered today and hold you in this moment for the next few hours anyway. Before we get started, I just wanted to recap what we did last session where we had Ms. Raquette talk about storytelling, and then we did the cooperative gallery walk. I just want to see if you were all able to get the recording from the last session. Thumbs up or head nods will be fine. No, thumbs up. Okay, some people did. Okay, we can resend that with this, but every session we send like a session wrap-up email, which has the recording and also had all the links that folks had asked for, including some links that were shared in the chat. But yeah, I just want to see if there maybe is a one word or maybe a statement about the last session, the parts about what Ms. Raquette was telling us, the importance of telling our own stories. If that stayed with you for the week, for the day, for the moment, is there anything you can recollect from there that you'd like to share? Not yet, not talkative yet. Okay, that's okay. That's fine. You can also share it in the
I'm gonna
chat.
share something, Nicole.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the importance of telling our stories, and that when it's coming from us, we have control over, like, I took notes and stuff, but I'm like, something about form, like we get to control when we're telling our stories, we have control over the form versus the form like controlling us. I think that may have been what was said. Yeah, the importance of how our narrative showing up, and just like storytelling and justice going hand in hand. I remember that was brought up. So yeah, it's been something I've been mulling over.
Thank you, Leona.
I would say the conversation in general, I loved it because it talked about like storytelling, but then also when you come from other countries and seeing the lack of storytelling and how it impacts people and perspectives, and how much necessary it is for us to share our stories. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Queen Entrance. And then from the Cooperative Gallery Rock, I see Tia Williams in the chat, cooperation vision, and Claire and Amaranthia, the importance of sharing our stories so that we can inspire and create representation for others. Absolutely. And then we also did the Cooperative Gallery Walk, which I know a lot of people had some feedback on that too. Which I hope you can go back to since you have those stories in your folders. And if there's ever a moment that you'd like to add your story to that cooperative gallery walk, like happy to do that as well. From Anthony, the breakout sessions with the information on various Black-owned co-ops. Yeah, for sure. So that gallery walk. And also enjoyed hearing people share their first experience of seeing themselves represented in media. Absolutely. That's a huge part too. Thank you. Yeah. And so we're going to keep moving forward. But like I said, those resources are available to you either in the folder, or there was a Jamboard that was sent as well. So if you need to reflect back to them, please do so. And we'll be getting into some more cooperative stories today. Oh, and then I just wanted to quickly kind of get an update before we move into our session. So we sent some payments out last week. I just want to make sure that if you have not received your payment yet, may you please let us know. And if you are just getting your forms in, we just saw those come in, so we'll make sure we get that out in the next 2 weeks. But yeah, if you're having issues with payments or anything, please let us know so that we can figure out what's happening on our end. But most of you should have received them already. So I hope that is the case. I'm not seeing any.
Is it getting mailed?
That's the case.
Okay, I heard is it getting mailed, and then someone else had muted too.
Yeah, I got mine.
You got yours, okay. Yep. So Bill.com I don't know, still a little weird to me, but trying to figure it out. Essentially, you have a couple days to like pick the option for direct deposit. If that option's not picked, it goes automatically to being mailed. And so I can check to see what the estimated arrival date is after this, if you let me know. And yeah, but once it's in the mailing system, it's in the mailing system. Okay, yes, I think they mailed it, Tanika. But we can, if you do not want a check at all, you can let us know. They'll void the check and then we'll try again with direct deposit. It's just going to take a little longer if you absolutely don't want to check. So, all right, we'll keep checking in on that. Thanks, Sterling. I see the message. Okay, cool. All right. All right, moving forward. So we have, yes, we just got the forms, Tia. And so we see the address. Okay, I see a message, Jennifer. Thank you. Okay, I'll circle back. Maybe while we do this, I'll privately message folks too as I check through the system and see what's happening if I have an update. Okay, so today we're going to continue. So sorry, a slight shift. Thank you. Thank you. We'll get that sorted for everyone. We're going to take a shift into beginning our session today. And so I'm not sure if there was a theme that you saw in our last cooperative gallery walk around the power of women or femmes in community, like leading some of the cooperative work, but we're going to dive deeper into that today. And continue on really solidifying ourselves in this Black cooperative history. And so today we have the incredible Danielle Mkali with us. Danielle is a co-founder of the North Star Black Cooperative Fellowship. So the space is here. We're all here today because of her. So I'm super excited to have you here, Danielle. And I'm going to read her bio, and then I'm going to just turn it over to Danielle. Okay, so Danielle Mkali has dedicated her career to building community cooperatives to create wealth building opportunities with Black people. As a senior director with the Nexus Community Partners, she leads a trust fund that redistributes $50 million to Black communities in Minnesota, North and South Dakota. She has also co-founded and led the North Star Black Cooperative Fellowship, connecting participants with the rich history of cooperative economics in the Black community while receiving technical skills and support for emerging cooperative business ideas. She was an organizer of a national campaign to expand low-power FM radio and helped found KRSM, a low-power FM radio station based out of the Phillips neighborhood in South Minneapolis. She chairs the Partnership in Property Commercial Land Trust Board, and she's also a board member of Collective Diaspora. I feel like this maybe slightly tells your story, but there's so much more too. Yeah, Danielle has been a wonderful champion for Black cooperatives here in the Twin Cities, but also with the Collective Diaspora, really thinking how we connect this Black cooperative work across, the diasporas, and an incredible supervisor and leader and one who always champions North Star. So welcome back to the space, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Nikuli, for that generous intro. I'm very happy to be here with you all this morning and just give thanks for my ancestors that, made the choice, the intention to keep going and made it possible for me to be here today, and asking for their support in our session this morning as we talk a little bit about Black feminisms. We'll focus for part of it on some historic folks that really impacted Black cooperative economics and their incredible stories. My personal mission is to connect Black people to the resources needed to unleash our self-determination, freedom, and success. I started learning about Black feminist work really from Dr. Rose Brewer. Do any of you know Dr. Rose Brewer? She was my professor at the University of Minnesota back in I don't know, 2002. And once I started taking, once I took one class with her, I just continued to, I think I took like 5 or 6 classes from her in my studies at the University of Minnesota. I was studying African and African American studies there. And one of the interesting things about, I was thinking about, Liana, when you were talking about the importance of telling our stories, is Black feminists really, so some of you may have heard about like the organizing and the political fight to even just get Black studies created in university systems. So there was a big takeover here at the University of Minnesota. Young Black students took over Morrill Hall to demand that Black studies be created there. Well, kind of like following that, and within that, these Black studies departments were created, and they wouldn't teach any Black women writers. And so all of these Black feminist folks had to get together to kind of demand that within these Black studies departments that Black women writers be included in that. And it's been very informative to me in my work, in my organizing work. And so I'm really excited to share how Black feminisms or womanist views, for those of you that identify more with the womanist term, how they've shaped Black cooperative economics. Let me go ahead and share my screen and get started. There we go. Thanks for your patience. So Black feminism and intersectionality in Black cooperative economics. The workshop today is about 5 minutes long. I think most of you, if you would like to, have already shared your pronouns. If you would prefer not to share them in your name, that's fine as well. I love to look at folks. If you're willing to have your camera on, that's great. If not, I also understand that as well. If you do have your camera off, but you are willing to have me call on you if I'm looking for feedback on things, if you want to just put like an asterisk by your name, and then I'll know that you want me to call on you and you want to be a part of the discussion too. You can also just use the chat for that too. So for today, the agenda for this workshop is that in our first activity, we'll go through North Star and Black feminisms and Black cooperative stars. And then we'll briefly look at the work of Harriet Tubman and the Combahee River. And then we'll spend a little bit of time looking at the Combahee River Collective and do a little bit of reflection on that. My hope is that the outcome for today will be that you all will recognize or maybe lean more deeply into why the Black cooperative movement has and continues to be shaped and created by Black feminists, that Black cooperative efforts continue to be informed by Black feminisms, and that helps our movement to be more intersectional and spaces where we can practically work for our collective liberation. And when I say practically work for our collective liberation, I think the person that stands out to me a lot in terms of the practical and brilliant genius organizer that is Fannie Lou Hamer, which we'll dig into a little bit later in our discussion today. But she always kept she placed a high amount of value and impact and effectiveness around working to help meet Black folks' material or like kind of emergency needs that they might have, and also was really skilled at inviting her community into thinking about political and organizing advances that they could take to change their conditions on a long-term basis. And so I love that about her. And we'll dig more into her as well, but that's what I mean by practical. So take a little time to kind of like locate where North Star's political orientation is within Black cooperative economics. People can have a lot of different kind of political frameworks when we're doing economic work. It's not all the same. And in particular, the strategy and the entities that are cooperatives, they're not just only like one type of way of doing business, although they are that as well. They are a couple things in one. But cooperative economics have always worked to change and solve for our social problems as well. So this is a photo of the Freedom Quilting Bee, a Black-owned textile cooperative that was created and born in the civil rights movement as a way for Black craftswomen without a lot of money in the Alabama Black Belt to earn money for their families. And so a cooperative was created. It had cultural impact and also economic impact, and was looking to solve, they were working together to solve their social problems together. So North Star is a space for learning and practicing intersectionality to become better at understanding how we create spaces for collective liberation and cooperatives. And so intersectionality to me just means that we look at the different ways our different experiences and situations within our community as Black folks have different impacts in how we're able to survive and thrive in our own communities. So in part, one of the reasons why North Star was created was, as you all have probably, you already know, I think you've all received the book Collective Courage by now, Dr. Jessica Gordon Nemhard's incredible book. When she came out with that book, we invited her to the Twin Cities to do a book talk and have several different visits with people around our community. And one of the things that I think impacted myself and our organization and our community very deeply when she came was the way that she was able to kind of weave this thread of Black cooperative work throughout all of our civil rights and freedom movements as we know them. So just gave numerous examples of how our economic cooperation has been an incredible tool to be able to get us more free and more liberated and to improve our lives together. And I think that it was one of those hidden stories, at least the framework that has always been an incredibly important way that we have been able to create change. That framework has really been hidden from most of us in our upbringing and in our education, even those of us like with advanced degrees. We're not really taught about the incredible ways we've been able to organize with each other through economic cooperation. And here's another note from Fannie Lou Hamer. Does anyone want to use their voice and read that quote?
Throughout our Black freedom movements, many of the most significant leaders have used economic cooperation to provide for both the material needs of their communities and as a political strategy. Wait, is that what I was supposed to read or the other one?
You could read both. That was great. If you want to read the
Okay, when you've got 400 quarts of greens and gumbo soup canned for the winter, nobody can push you around or tell you what to say or do.
thank you. Is it Trila?
Yep, it's Trila, and I'm sorry, I could turn my camera on, but it freezes up a lot. I don't have the best Wi-Fi situation right now. So it freezes up and then I can't hear and everything. So that's why I keep my camera off.
Yeah, so that's totally fine. It's good to see you though for a moment, and I understand. Uh, so what do people think about that quote from Fannie Lou Hamer? What is she talking about?
I feel like she's talking about like wealth and just like once you have everything that you need to be able to get you through, a season, that also gives you self-agency and freedom, to where it's just like, you can't tell me anything, I got myself taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah. I see the chat is going. Self-sustainability, autonomy. Mm-hmm. Yep. Being self-reliant provides you with a lot of freedom. Yeah. Have people experienced that where like all of a sudden they've had more autonomy or sustainability or like the self-resilience? Not that to say that any of us are like totally experiencing that at one time, but like when you've moved into a space where you feel like you have more autonomy, or how did that make you feel? Barter system. Yes, most definitely. Mm-hmm. Oh, like you're helping. Tell me more about what you mean when you say you're helping.
What I meant by that is when your cup is full, then you have more to give. So in that way.
Mm-hmm. More control over how I use my time and resources. Ooh, yes. That feels good. All right. All right. So what even does Black feminisms really mean? Okay, Carl said, my identity was no longer a barrier, but a catalyst to see change happen and recapitalize power, decapitalize power. Okay, so power was not only coming through money. Is that what you're saying, Carl?
Yes, sorry. Just want to honor the woman voices in here. Don't want to overshadow as well. So decapitalizing power for me meant like community became more important, and collective voices became more important than dominant voices that were shadowing the direction. And also we were able, I was starting to see that power can be decentralized in most cases.
Did that scare you at all at first when power was feeling like decentralized?
It depends on like the circumstance. Like I was for it. I wanted it to be decentralized. I was for the shifting because sometimes how we experience power for me in my case, how we experience power also comes with much more responsibility. And because we have the responsibility, we double the power back, saying, "Oh, I deserve this." because I'm responsible for it. And when kind of when I say when we decentralize the power, I was no longer the only one responsible, and so that helped a lot.
I love that. I felt less stress and that I was building my mental strength. Amaranthia. Nice. Yes. How incredible. So Black feminism can be a little bit hard to just kind of contain into one definition, but this is from the National Museum of African American History. And their attempt is that Black feminism is an intellectual, artistic, philosophical, and activist practice grounded in Black women, femmes, and non-binary people's lived experiences. Its scope is broad, making it difficult to define. In fact, the diversity of opinion among Black feminists makes it more accurate to think of Black feminisms in the plural, sorry, excuse me. So here we just have a few folks, Charlene Carruthers, Polly Murray up here in the top left, Fannie Lou Hamer in the top right, and then the most wonderful, incredible Toni Morrison in the bottom right. So Black feminist leaders, although they may not have referred to themselves as Black feminists at that time, built the cooperative movement and also articulated a need for intersectionality. Many of them didn't maybe use that term of intersectionality, but often through their work and through their written words and vision for where our communities needed to be headed in, that was what they were working for. I want to take a moment to move folks into some small group discussions. And so gonna have folks split into 3 different groups. Group 1 will have a chance to look into all of the groups will be able to look at different Black feminist cooperative stars. Group 1 will look at Ida B. Wells. Group 2 will have Fannie Lou Hamer. And group 3 will have Ella Jo Baker. Just ask that each group has a note taker. It doesn't have to be like verbatim. And someone who will agree to maybe help share important reflections that come from your small group discussions. So each of you will be asked to just share a little bit about what was really interesting or made you really curious, or you felt challenged by, or you disagreed about. And then, so please read the Black Co-op feminist slide and then respond to the questions. There'll be a slide with your featured star and then some questions on another slide following it. There's a few questions there. You don't have a ton of time to get through all of them. So just work through as many as you can, and you'll have about 15 minutes for your small group discussions. People have any questions about that? Okay. Well, I think we can move folks into small groups.
I do have a quick question. So the slides, are these also the physical folders? Like, is this information in our folder, or are we just gonna go through our own slides?
Oh, so I think Nikuli just shared a PDF of the slides.
Oh,
and they
yeah.
have information. Group 1 will have Ida B. Wells. Oh, yeah, okay.
Got
Yep.
it. Okay, thank you.
And the question following that. And I can come around, or you can message me too if you have any questions or confusion in your small groups.
Nice. Yep, I got it.
Okay, cool.
All right, ready? Okay. Oh wait, everyone was assigned to group 1. Oh no. Oh, I need to manually assign. Okay.
Thanks for doing this, Nicole. Sorry, I threw this.
Sorry, I messed up something. So, okay, cool. Now everyone's been assigned.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna once again.
Hi, friends.
Did you also come back early-ish?
I did because I saw it pop up and then I said, hit leave now. And I thought the rest of the group was going to do it. And now I'm here. So, LOL.
Yeah. I was dealing with some... Sorry. Okay.
I'm kind of nervous now because I was taking the notes and they're like, who's going to talk? And I'm like, oh, dang it. I got to do it.
How's everybody feeling?
I'm great. Like, chilling with my dog. And she's, she's a puppy. So she's super cute.
Oh.
I accidentally ordered caribou and I forgot to say oat milk, so I'm not feeling too good.
Dang.
Bogus.
That sucks. You're probably so excited about the caribou too.
Yes. I'm like, why does this taste different at the end of the cup?
At the end of the cup. Dang. Oh my God.
All right. So what group is ready to share some of their maybe highlights, challenges, maybe disagreements, curiosities, excitement?
Mhm. I'm gonna let group one to go first. So let's see here. So we had Ida B. Wells and our questions. Well, let me just pull those up so I can give y'all those before I give you the answers. Okay, so oh, you know what? I just lost the questions because when they brought us back to the big group, it just lost the stream. Anyway, so that's okay. I'ma just say what I got here. So we were talking about the importance of like having our history preserved and like protecting it, but then also just making sure that everybody in our community knows it. Like, so Ida B. Wells was a part of like um the suffrage group, and just like she was a part of the anti-lynching act. Was it an act or a law? Oh Lord, y'all, I forgot what it said. But anyway, so just like she was working with the NAACP, and then towards the end, she was just like, Black elitists and white leadership just kind of led her to leave, and so withholding the responsibility of like having your history being held on to the Black community and everything, I feel like at the end it wouldn't make white people so comfortable to take those positions of leadership in groups where we need to be representing everybody in the marginalized group, not just like the elite end, you know what I mean? Like people working in fast food restaurants, people with disabilities, people with mental health. That's like a really big issue and everything. And like we need to be all working together, because if that's, when we're all together, we're on the same page, that doesn't allow people to come in and try to take over like again and again and again, as they keep doing in our history. Like they keep, for some reason, trying to shut down our voice and make it so that they're our representative. Like they know exactly what we've been going through, and like be able to relate to everything. So like, yeah, okay, yeah, boom, I love it. Thank you guys. Her. Okay, so yeah, I kind of just mixed both of the answers for 1 and 2 together about like who does it serve to keep Black feminism and cooperatives hidden or the history being untold? And personally, I didn't think it served anyone for our history to not be untold, because that's just like, that's my biggest frustration with like our younger generation. They don't understand the power that they have. Like, they're very outspoken, but they don't understand the power that they have if they knew their full history and just took that into the next moves that they make politically, the next moves that they make for their community, fully like that. And then how might the situation be different today? Like, we want people to be uncomfortable, like coming into our space and then trying to make moves that will benefit them. Like, we don't want them to just be like, oh well, I feel like I have a perspective that they don't know, when they don't really know all the things we've been trying to work through. You know what I mean? Like, we're still in we're in a very similar situation to our ancestors today, and like, we want to see more progress instead of allowing people to come in and hinder that progress. You know what I mean? And then, yeah, I think, I don't, oh, it was from Claire and, let me see what the name was. Claire and Amar. Okay, sis, you gotta tell your name because I've been messing it up. Amarithia. Wow, that's so pretty. Okay, yes. And then, so her mom was saying colonialism is a plot, and I'm 100% behind that statement. Like they know what they're doing, and so if we wanna keep, like, move forward, like, we can't just allow them to colonize us, essentially. So, boom, yeah, mic drop.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is group 2 ready? I know we had someone taking notes, but we didn't really actually talk about a spokesperson. Anyone want to say a couple things about what stood out from our conversation?
Was that the group that you were in?
Yes, Nishana, yeah.
I know Carl took notes, but if someone else wants to jump in, but we had Fannie Lou Hamer and just talked about more so around how we came to realization of like Black feminism and like that intersection with co-ops, and we just also talked about just our own personal experience around it being a very natural cultural way of being as Black people, and just also just highlighting some of the just oppression she was under, in spite of, and how she, used this as a way of like, not only economic power, but that resiliency it took to organize people in her neighborhood. And someone else can elaborate as well too, because I know how you were taking some notes.
I can go. So I think for me, we talked about like the difference between like what we see as cooperative, what's cooperative like today, and collectivism, and we talked a lot about how Emi, I want to say her name right. I love how she talked about how she was motivated in uniting people's ideas and passions, and how she, even though she had opposition and struggle and abuse, she was still able to move forward and empower females. So I really appreciate that. And then Anthony said this is the first time that he's seen Black co-ops and Black feminism correlate, and I think that is true because of some. Danielle asked a question about have we been taught this in high school, and then what's our experience with that, and I think that was really important. And then also Wisconsin also has at the University of Wisconsin, they have a school of cooperative, so they're really important. They really care about cooperatives in that area. And I wanted to say, Fannie Lou Hamer, she may have got a $10,000 donation in 1969, but it kind of correlated to $100,000 today. And so just to know that it wasn't a small donation, it was rather large for the work that she did. And so I think it was really important that she did that. And so just being able to hear these viewpoints was really powerful.
Thank you for that. Group 3. I think group
Hey.
3.
So I took the notes for our group. So what I have here is for question 1. We stated that who benefits is the government, and pretty much every race benefits because when it comes to who is receiving the most money or getting the most benefits out of things that are created by Black people or Black women, that's who is benefiting off of it, whether that's products or spending. For 2, we have how would it impact now if it didn't happen, or if we were able to do it again, it would be a great wealth transfer. And also just having power when it comes to like political power, and then unity in the community, because a lot of people would be working together and collaborating on business or just different things. Um, yeah, and less money leaving our community. And then the third one was how the impact is not waiting to be safe, self-reliance, and autonomy. So those are the notes that I took down for us. And if you ladies wanted to add anything else, you're welcome to do so.
Thank you for that. All right. So these are just like little tidbits about each of these folks, these Black co-op stars. And so I hope if you're curious, you'll continue to learn more about them. I can share some more resources too with the group about each of them too that I've used to study them for a long time. I feel like Elle Baker and Fannie Lou Hamer and Ida B. Wells are some of those folks that you can study your whole life and continue to get new lessons for whatever it is that you're working on. I just want to do a time check, Nikuli and Liana. Do I have till 11:20 or 11:25?
I think technically 11:20, but if you need a little more time, I mean, happy to be flexible. So do it. Yeah, feels good.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna take till 11:25. And just because I want to leave you all with a couple of things before we end this session for today. So Harriet Tubman, I know, hey Anika, I know Anika has a whole organization called Run Like Harriet, and also congratulations on your city council win. Super dope, yes. And so excited about that. So, but Harriet Tubman, as some of you might have, I don't know if this has been brought up in your study so far with North Star or outside of the space, but W.B. Du Bois did this whole paper on economic cooperation among Negroes and it came out in like 1919, and he refers to Harriet Tubman as the general of cooperative economics. And because of her work on the Underground Railroad her effort to collectively organize hundreds of people to regain our autonomy and ownership over each other through a very, skillful and incredible way for us to, regain our ownership over ourselves. So refers to all of that work, the whole Underground Railroad, as a cooperative economic effort. So the Combahee Ferry Raid is about Harriet Tubman's work in would someone be able to read that what's on the screen right now?
Sure. The Combahee Ferry Raid on June 2nd, 1863, Harriet Tubman, under the command of Union Colonel James Montgomery, became the first woman to lead a major military operation in the United States when she and 150 African American Union soldiers rescued more than 700 slaves in the Combahee Ferry Raid during the Civil War. Whoa.
So I don't know, what couldn't Harriet Tubman do? I'm just not sure. So many years later, fast forward many years ahead, and we have the Combahee River Collective. So Combahee River Collective was a collective group that it was primarily Black folks, and they put together this Combahee River Collective statement in 1977, and they articulated, so gave words to this feeling, experience that Black women had often had in many spaces around critiquing both sexual oppression in the Black community and racism within the wider feminist movement. And this is the statement that they came up with, or a portion of the statement that they came up with. And it's that we realize that the liberation of all oppressed peoples necessitates the destruction of the political economic systems of capitalism and imperialism, as well as patriarchy. We are socialists because we believe that work must be organized for the collective benefit of those who do the work and create the products. So cooperative ownership, right? We own what we make, we own our labor, and not for the profit of the bosses. Material resources must be equally distributed among those who create those resources. We are not convinced, however, that a socialist revolution that is not also a feminist and anti-racist revolution will guarantee our liberation. So drawing these dots, right, between how we actually get free. That if we're leaving behind Black folks, if we're leaving behind Black women, if we're leaving people with different abilities behind, we're not all actually getting free. We have arrived at the necessity for developing an understanding of class relationships that takes into account the specific class position of Black women who are generally marginal in the labor force. While at this particular time, some of us are temporarily viewed as doubly desirable tokens at a white collar and professional levels, we need to articulate the real class situations of persons who are not merely raceless, sexless workers, but for whom racial and sexual oppression are significant determinants in their working and economic lives. Although we are in essential agreement with with Marx's theory as it is applied to the very specific economic relationships he analyzed, we know that his analysis must be extended further in order for us to understand our specific economic situation as Black women. So the Combahee Collective decided that as they were coming together and trying to figure out how to articulate this particular situation that they found themselves in, they wanted to name themselves after a political event rather than like a person. And so they chose to name themselves after the Combahee Ferry Raid that Harriet Tubman led. And so that's where that name came from. And the reason why I wanted to just kind of take up this last 5 minutes was I want to leave these questions with you all in terms of questions that I would hope that maybe you could reflect on as a cooperative group, probably not today, but maybe in the future, just one of those things you kind of continue to return to is that that as cooperatives that we should be very clear about like who our people are and how are we accountable to them? Like what are a group of folks? And how do you know you're accountable to them? What would they want you to be? How do they want you to show up for them to be accountable to them? And then the last question was just that the Combahee River Collective was inspired by this rain. Is there a political action or a moment or something in our community or in our history that really inspires your own cooperative? Oh, sorry. Those are my last questions that I will leave all of you with. I've taken up too much time. I really thought I was doing better with time management with this session. But I will work on refinement for even the next time. But I really appreciate being with you all this morning. I'm definitely available if people have questions and want to follow up with me about this presentation or other work. And I'll make these slides available to Nikuli and Liana as well. But thank you all so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Danielle. Any final words from the cohort members for Danielle?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. I didn't know that last part about Harriet Tubman, so that was quite interesting. So,
Yeah, she's just, I mean, amazing. The one and only. She's my Black president forever.
You could put that on a t-shirt, yes.
You can take it, Anika.
Harriet for president, yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Danielle. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you.
And if I could answer your last question really fast, I wanted to say what inspires me politically is people like Anika, and congratulations, Anika, for being on city council.
Thank
and
you.
Our city council is what inspires me. Like, I am so proud, and it's just, I'm just so proud.
Yes, no, it's been amazing. The most powerful thing, I mean, aside from us being majority women of color, but all young, and just like progressive minded, is that we literally worked as a collective, and like that is rarely happens when you run for office. But thank you. I appreciate it. I'm happy. As people know, I wasn't able to make it to the first meeting, but because clearly I was trying to secure the win. But I just appreciate everybody.
All right. All right. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Danielle. And she'll be back for other sessions too. So yeah, this is not the first or last time you'll be in conversation with Danielle. And happy to share some emails too, if that's something that you're interested in. Liana, what does time look like for the breakout sessions? The reflection.
Yeah, I was gonna offer like a 2-minute break for folks to just, we've absorbed a lot. If we can come back in 2, and then I was gonna offer up those questions she left with, those can be our little small group questions. So just taking some time to just come back. And then, so I know it's 29. Let's take 2 minutes, come back, let us know you're back. And then we'll just do a few small group breakouts. So yeah, we can do that now. 2 minutes. 10:31.
11:31.
Sorry, I'm in a different time, so I don't know if people know that. Okay, 10:30, 11:31. I'm sorry. All right.
Knocked out.
So,
Hello.
All right, welcome back. Liana, are you here? All right, maybe they stepped out for a second. Okay, so were there any reflection? Oh, Wi-Fi, okay. Were there any reflections from the breakout rooms that people want to share in the larger space?
well, we
Share.
oh,
All
oh
right, I'm back. Everyone's back. Cool.
yeah.
All
So
right.
who was sharing?
It
Sorry.
was
I was saying I can share.
Okay.
We focused on the question of who are you serving, and just kind of talked about the importance of creating our own systems and having systems in place, kind of like a lot of the leaders from back in the day, just having a system, whoever it is that you're focusing on, whether it's in the community or whatever, have a system that works. Not just a vision, not just a focus, but having an actual system that has a focus that's going to equal to some results and not just conversation, not just continuously talking about what the problem is and how we can help each other, and not just trading resources, but how can we actually create a system that's going to change. And for example, I gave the example of the Black church being one of the biggest co-ops, because they had a system that worked. They had different groups from the usher board to the choir and things like that. And it just kind of worked because people worked together. They worked collectively. They had a system, they had a mission, and everybody had the same type of understanding. So I think when we focus on our individual co-ops and the things that we're doing, just looking at the structure of how it's set up and implemented, to see what are the main results, and making sure that we're getting to the end result and how we're calculating that change.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Nishana.
our breakout room, we talked about, it was like, who are our people, and like essentially like how do you know if your people, if you're dang, what was that last question? It was like if your people are for you, or if it's working or whatever. That part. Okay. So anyway, the main point was our people is entirely is the Black people, and and specifically Black women. We were talking about just like cultivating a sisterhood and all that, like how we want there to be more love and everything just like that. And like how we know if that works is like, if everybody holds themselves accountable, and like if everybody is like on board pulling their weight with the cooperative, and like making sure that we can make this work. Because having people butt heads all the time, having no room for compromise, having no room for like hearing everybody, is just not going to get you anywhere. And Abriana brought up a good point where you just like, she's interested in people who have the mindset of growth and having the mindset of being accountable to themselves as well. Like, so that's the type of community that's going to allow cooperative to work. And then that's also the type of community that's going to see themselves be heard over people who are constantly combating each other and constantly comparing each other and doing things like that. Like, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing. All right, y'all, we are at the time of our lunch break. And so asking, so we'll be taking a break until 12:25 p.m., where we'll be joined by Dominic Pearson to really talk through the cooperative values and principles that are established by all cooperatives. And so you're more than welcome to stay in the space if you'd like. If you're gonna hop off Zoom until then, feel free to self-steward. But yeah, please be back by 12:25 and we'll pick up where we left off.
Okay. Bye, friends.
See ya.
Tell me where I live, as you don't cut that big fine tree where they all streets. Wahala dey town. Tell me where I go sleep, oh, as you don't cut all of the trees to make your house, oh. Wahala dey town. No house for me again. Where I go go? Tell me, Mr. Man, no. No house for me again, no. Where I go go? Tell me, Mr. Man, no. If I come inside your house, you go chasing me, come out. If I come inside your house, so poison dey for ground. If I come inside your house, you go chasing me, come out. If I come inside your house, so poison dey for ground. Wahala dey, oh. We no go gree, oga, we no go gree, oh. Wahala dey, oh. We no go gree, we no go gree. Trouble to sleep, the anger go wake up. You no get joy, me too, I no get some. Trees are down, your city high.
So I'm on mute, as I can see. Okay, just 1 second here. All right, just wanted to briefly share my screen again. And share, which I would have done in the beginning, but just wanted to recap, remind all of us about our group agreements that we named in the first session and just wanted to return to them briefly. So I'll just read through them and then we will transition to our next portion. So take the learning and leave the story. Say it ugly. Create space and make space. Practice both and thinking. Speak from your own experience. Be okay with fumbling while holding impact and intent. A discussion, not a debate. And be your own boo. So just wanting to continue to bring these forth so we can remind ourselves, remind each other, and just continue to cultivate the space that we would like to have throughout our time. So we can always return back to these at any moment. But I'm gonna stop sharing now so we can transition. Dominique has joined us. Thank you for being here. Gonna introduce Dominique. And then I will turn the floor over to them. So Dominique Pearson. Dominique is a lover, a fighter, a daughter, and a sister. They are an herbalist, root worker, food and economic justice educator, born and raised in the Tongva lands, Compton, Inglewood, California. Dominique is committed to the practice of culture keeping, the liberation of their people, and the freedom dreams of their ancestors. A Black American Afro-Indigenous woman, Dominique continues to help community build systems for a liberatory future. They are deeply involved in the work of mutual aid and alternative realities as a founder of Black Roots Herbals, LLC, member of Mutual Aid Disaster Relief, and a founding member of the Baltimore Street Medic Collective. They have offered that same holistic support to businesses that are rooted in community with their decade-long career as a cooperative business developer, now with the LA Co-op Lab. Welcome, Dominique. We're so glad that you're here joining us today. Make sure that you have what you need. I believe we made you a co-host in case you need to share anything, but I will pass it over to you if you're ready. Thank you.
I'm trying to get my computer to go.
Okay.
Can y'all hear me okay?
Can hear you now. Yeah.
I can hear you.
Cool. I'm like on 2 devices right now. Hi, y'all. Technology hates me. So we're going to be on this journey together.
Hi, welcome.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick note too about Dominique. So I don't know if we actually ended up sharing this, but recently there was a Black Cooperative Solidarity Conference that happened in Ghana. And that's how we met Dominique. Dominique has been doing some really incredible cooperative organizing from Philly to LA and so many more spaces. So we're just super excited to be able to bring some of those relationships that we started forming there to here. But yeah, we'll talk more about some of that other work too and how we met later. But just wanted to take a note that I'm so grateful that you're here, Dominique, and so grateful to have met you and now sharing space with you post Ghana. So yeah.
Aw. Thanks. That's so nice. I'll try to live up to the hype. Also, you're gonna see my face twice. We'll figure it out. Hi, I'm Dominique. Thank y'all for having me here. I would love to start by just like, what have y'all been learning? Like, I feel like I just like came in halfway through the conversation, and I'm super curious as to the conversations y'all have been having right before this meeting. So like, what have y'all been talking about? Anybody want to share?
I will. Yeah, hi. Welcome. So happy to have you. So what we've been talking about today in the last group also is Black cooperatives and how it's kind of like inherent for us. It's in our DNA to get together, to pool our resources and to help one another pull ourselves up and put ourselves in a better position and share knowledge and food and, you know, medicine, everything. So that's kind of what we're talking about today, is how the different people who and their strategies and kind of like what gave them lit the fire in them to be able to do this, and what were the other things that they were doing while simultaneously running a cooperative. So just really proud of the rich history of Black and Indigenous people making things happen for themselves. That's always been our way. So when you take colonization, when you take material things out of the way, then it's like humans, the earth, attachment to each other, and continuing our legacies, banding together for the years to come.
Yes, we love it. Anybody else want to share?
I'll share. We were just in a breakout and we were answering some questions. Who are our people? Who will we be accountable to? And just being able to look at that and understand that building a co-op is just not about whatever product or service, but it's about the who, the why, and then the accountability. How do we show up and make sure that the service or product that we are offering the community is actually benefiting the community? And my thought was just always making sure that we're checking in, right? If this is for the community, we always have to invite them in so that they can be a part of it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That feels like that kind of segues into our conversation today. And can y'all see my screen? I'm trying to share a screen right now. Can y'all see it?
Right
We
now,
can only see you. We can
no.
see you.
You can see me but not the screen?
No.
Right. Hold on.
It looks like you started to share and then it stopped on my end. That's what I saw. I don't know.
Let me see.
Yeah, we can try again.
Hold on. No. Let's see if Zoom wants to do what I wanted to do. You gonna let me do a Zoom? No? Maybe? Okay, hold on.
Dominique, if you'd like to send it to, we could screen share, if that would be easy. Let us know what works best for you.
Oh, that actually would probably be better. Let me do that. Ideal. Okay, let me share this. Sorry, y'all. I'm in the airport because your girl is always traveling. And that is what it is. Let me share this with you.
Where are you going to now?
So where am I going to?
Yeah.
I'm coming home from Alexandria, Louisiana. I was just in this really dope group of Black farmers, Black rice farmers, who are trying to start a co-op, like a southern based co-op, based around like a collective rice mill. Yeah. Yeah, they're pretty cool. Okay, Leanna, I think I just sent it to you. Did you get it?
Yes. 1 second here. I'm gonna make sure that Cooley also has access just in case my connection goes out. So 1 moment.
And while that's happening, so this conversation today is about Black feminism and co-op values. We're going to talk about what values are, why they matter, how cooperative values engage with Black feminism, if at all, and then how we can take that information forward. And so, like, while that's figuring out, I'd love to hear from folks, like, what are values to y'all? Like, what do values mean? Why are values important? And like, how do y'all see values as existing in the world, and how can they be useful? Do you want to answer that question?
I think values are important, especially when you are starting a co-op for the community. Values for me is integrity, showing up and actually doing the work that you're supposed to be doing, and always centering it around community.
Yes, absolutely.
I think values are more like the distinctives that drive the mission and vision of whatever you're trying to do, whether it's your organization, your family, your community, and they are the ones that they keep the boundaries of the things that you're going to be trying to do within, and you keep reorienting people back to the values, not so much the mission and the vision, to be able to see the future of what you're trying to build.
Yes, yes. I see in the chat, Claire and Amaranthia say it's about making sure we're holding ourselves as founders of a co-op and the team members we work with 100% accountable. Absolutely. Yes. Accountability is a big part of the value system and why we name our values in the first place. Anybody else? Yep, definitely. If values are not in place, we can sway from our mission statement, leading to chaos. Absolutely true. Yep. Anyone else want to share why values are important to y'all? Why values are important to name out loud? How you've seen values used in life?
I think values also can have multiple different perspectives. So I feel like going off of what Carl says, it's like instead of redirecting them to the mission, because the mission can always it doesn't essentially change, but the mission can always have like a wider like stance, you know what I mean? So having values in place, like it keeps people from straying off from the end goal, like, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's why it's important.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Definitely. You stay in alignment and stick to the purpose. Yep. Absolutely. Yes, y'all are all correct. If you could move us like 2 slides over. If I can find my own. Y'all, I can't even find what the slide looks like. Goodness gracious. Hold on a second. Oh my God.
Is this the right one or a little bit further?
There it is.
You're not sure?
Yes, that is the right one. No, that's the right one. You got it. So yeah, so y'all are all correct, right? All of these values are the ways that we keep ourselves accountable, right? Are the ethics by which we like hold ourselves. They're like the measurement, the barometer by which we can check our decision making, and ensure that we're actually in alignment with what we say we are. Can you move over one more? And so we're talking about starting a business, right? Starting a co-op. Some of these actually are co-ops, but they're all businesses, right? And theoretically, they all have values. They might not be in alignment with us, but they do have some values, right? What are some of the values that y'all think of when you see these organizations like Amazon and Visa and Starbucks? Like, what are some of the values that come to mind when you think of these like mainstream business organizations?
Reliability.
Liability, you said?
Just being reliable, on time, accountable.
Mm-hmm. Scalability, also, yep. Liability, scalability. Mm-hmm. What other values do you think of when you see Amazon or Starbucks or Monsanto or Visa?
Quality.
What'd you say?
Quality.
You think quality? That's very nice of you to think quality when it comes to Amazon. Okay.
I was gonna say quality entirely. I was gonna say efficiency. Yeah, I was gonna say how efficient they are.
Affordability.
Yeah,
Yep.
like anything that will instantly give you like some form of satisfaction or whatever. Like that's why these businesses like
Yep. Mm-hmm. Any more?
Well, I think because you put Monsanto in there, it made me think of the shared ownership in all the companies, especially the marketplace shareability.
Mm-hmm. Shared ownership, scalability, power, monopolies. And notice that all of these things that we're naming, they have like potentially different connotations, right? So you think efficiency, and you could think that's positive, right? We're making things happen the way that they need to, as quickly as they need to. You can also think efficiency that does not put people first. You could think efficiency over people, right? And that's not necessarily the kind of value that folks are moving towards, right? You talk about scalability as a value, that could be you could look at that in a positive direction, right? We like to be able to build, right? You could also look at that in a negative way, like we're going too big, right? The building is the organization is larger than the people, right? Thinking about like, what was it? Power and monopolies, right? There are a lot of folks when they make businesses who are like, my goal is to be like the person who does this. Like my goal is to be like the most well-known jewelry maker. I want to be the best market. I want to be the #1 grocery store in the whole of the state, right? That could be a value, right? And there are some folks who think monopolies and they think, no, that's terrible. We don't want a monopoly. We want to make room for other folks, right? And so as you as you really dig into the words that we're using to name our values, it can get easy to see how folks can think that they're naming values in alignment, but not actually be entirely in alignment. Which is why it's so important to have the conversations and name your values early in the cooperative process and in the business process, right? So that we can all know that we're on the same page and actually be clear about what that page is, right? Because you could name the page efficiency, and that can mean one thing to me, and that means something totally different to you, right? Let's go one more. So yeah, so these are some of the reasons that why it's important to name who and what we value. Y'all have already mentioned some of these, right? So we can all agree on what we stand for, so everyone else knows what we stand for, so we can keep ourselves accountable, right, to who we say we are and what we say. Something to measure our choices and decisions, to be able to look at what we're doing and go, oh, is that in alignment or not? These are all really, really important reasons to name our values. It's also helpful just on like a logistical tip, right? It gets a lot easier to have conversations around conflict, around rule breaking, around doing things incorrectly or wrong. It's easier to have those conversations when there is like a clear barometer that's correct, right? We've agreed to these things and you're not doing these things. And so it's really clear to go, this is the problem, as opposed to folks trying to operate in a space that's maybe less specific and has less of your rules and regulations in place. It can be harder to have those conversations and be clear on like what is right and what is wrong, because we haven't agreed to those things. And so when we have our really clear values agreements, even beyond like our policies and our bylaws that can tell us like the nitty-gritty of what we should be doing, those values actually allow us to think deeper, not just about what we're doing, but how we're doing it, and making sure that we're in alignment in that space as well. Does that make sense? And so what does this have to do with Black feminism, right? I very much came to the space of Black feminism because the idea of traditional feminism didn't really make sense for me, right? It didn't feel like it worked for me. It didn't feel like the values that were espoused in traditional feminism were actually in alignment with my personal values. And it felt as if there were things that existed that modern feminism wasn't really naming, right? Like there were things that I was dealing with as a Black woman that like feminism didn't really talk about, that didn't really feel relevant to that conversation. And so to me, the conversation about feminism versus the Black feminism and the conversation about values feels really in alignment, because Black feminism is a space in which Black women and Black folks are allowed to be really explicit about what our values are, and are able to hold each other accountable to our values, as opposed to a value system that doesn't necessarily align with us, right? Because folks have different value systems, right? We can all come to the same co-op and maybe theoretically have the same mission and vision and idea, but we have different values. And so that means that we're gonna go about things, we're gonna approach things extremely differently, right? If you value efficiency and I value relationship, but we're both trying to build a business, we might go about those things completely differently. And so I'm gonna take some time to watch this video, this TED Talk about Black feminism, and then we're gonna take some time and discuss sort of how that relates to the conversation around our collective values. Liana, can you play this video?
Is Western feminism dangerous to African women? As a young woman who was born in West Africa and has lived in South Africa for 13 years, the term feminism remains uncharted waters for many. It is rebellious, seen as taboo, and in my home country, Cameroon, it is a word that every mother hopes to never hear her daughter say, because it either means she hates men, men hate her, or she'll end up not getting married. But why? What does feminism mean to African women? Is feminism un-African? But most importantly, is feminism dangerous to the safety and empowerment of African women? Growing up like most girls, I went through the phase of hating boys because, boys have cooties, and books before boys because boys bring babies. But my friends thought I took this a little bit further when I decided to call myself a feminist. After watching videos, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's We Should All Be Feminists being at the top of that list, and reading publications from the fierce women who called themselves feminists, I was ready to take on this role as my own. And so when I stepped into a room, I would introduce myself as Alma Acob, the radical feminist. Whenever there was a conversation pertaining equality, empowerment, and gender roles, everyone knew I would be involved and I would be brutal. In fact, if people saw me approaching and they were having a conversation, they would quickly change the topic because they knew I would call them out on their sexist ways and do so unapologetically. As a Pan-African citizen and a Black woman who spat on the face of patriarchy and hated misogyny, I thought I was qualified enough to call myself a radical feminist. But I was wrong. There were certain aspects of radical feminism that I did not align with, such as what seemed to be the innate hate for all things male and masculine. And so I decided to call myself Alma, the liberal feminist. I was passionate about the liberation of women and what the core definition of feminism was: the equality of sexes, freedom from oppression, and gender equality. Not the extra bits that keep getting added on every single day. When meeting other feminists, I would always have my feminism questioned as though there was some sort of a checklist or a mold that I needed to fit into to be called a feminist. Then there was the feminist jargon, a series of highly intellectual words that even with my high education, I still find it difficult to keep up with. I then found out about the racial injustices associated with the founders of feminism, and so I decided to call myself Alma, the intersectional feminist. But then, of course, the other feminists always told me, look, Alma, if you're not going to be 100% feminist, then don't be feminist at all. So I started introducing myself as Alma the feminist. But at this point, I was told I had watered down the movement so much and that I was using it for clout. And so now I am Alma, an individual who is appalled by the injustices faced by women, is an advocate for women empowerment, and understands, or rather stands for, gender equality. Now, why is this story important? Because this is the narrative faced by a number of people who have tried to associate with the feminist movement, feeling ostracized and not welcomed by a movement because they don't fit into this mold. Especially the minorities, those who don't understand the language, those who can't relate to mainstream feminism, those who can't just take off their bras to make a statement, those like me. We don't fit this mold. But were we meant to? Was feminism created with the Black woman's struggle in mind? Was feminism created for African Black women? Now, although Black women and white women share commonalities of oppression, the latter have experienced privileges since history. During colonialism, white women, or rather women in general, were characterized according to race, class, and social status. White women were housewived, whereas Black women and women of color were colonized. The creation of the domestic housewife meant the white woman's withdrawal from a very male-dominated and a male-created society. She was meant to look pretty and take care of the home and not participate in anything else such as politics and leadership or getting a job. And thus the foundations of feminism were founded on the principles of a white woman no longer wanting to be a housewife. She wanted to run for office. She wanted to drive a tractor. But that same femininity that was afforded to white women was completely stripped away from Black women. Black women were seen as aggressive, sexually perverse, and capable of doing any sort of labor, hard labor or soft labor. Note that in comparison to the Black woman, the white woman was already superior, emancipated, privileged, liberated, free. Thus, all she wanted was the equality of sexes. Black women, on the other hand, saw empowerment as something completely different. Empowerment to Black women meant so much more. It was fighting against racism, fighting neocolonialism, fighting socially economic mechanisms. They were fighting for their life. And so Black African women, the early African feminists, were reluctant to align themselves with this term of Western feminism because they believed that it focused solely on the white woman, making her at the core of this movement, and it ignored the marginalization and the plight of the Black woman. Also, remember, that white women participated in the enslavement of Black women. So it makes sense to me that a movement that empowered one race of agenda and oppressed the other race of agenda is not welcomed by everyone. So my question is, was African hopeless before feminism? I mean, did we completely disregard women's rights? Now, I remember growing up and hearing the stories about the matriarchs from my village, in Oshe, Cameroon, the women who spoke and thousands listened. Now, they were the advisors to chiefs. They led kingdoms alongside their kings. They made a difference. They had influence. I not only heard of this, but saw it myself when I visited my village and saw the women of the compound, who made the decisions. Their respect was granted according to age, not gender. So the oldest woman in the compound, known as Avu, would be granted the highest level of respect by every man, woman, and child. These were the fierce African women that we had never heard of growing up. And that's the problem, the fact that these narratives are not documented. And so these women had never heard of the term feminism. In fact, feminism doesn't even exist in our dialect, but they were happy. And they were living a life that today would be seen as oppressed. And that's something that I still can't sit with. The fact that our grandmothers who are uneducated are currently labeled as oppressed, are currently labeled as enslaved, whereas they were doing their hardest and sacrificing for us to have the basic necessities. Even today, we see women who decide to be housewives being looked down upon by the feminist movement as not being strong enough and as settling for less. So, is feminism un-African? Well, I'll let you decide that question, but here's something to think of. Mainstream, or rather current Western feminist ideology is based on the concept of I. How can I free myself from oppression? African community ideology is based on we. How can we empower ourselves for the benefit of everyone? Ubuntu, I am because you are, with strong family values. The problem with feminism is that it is individualistic. It tries to be representative of an entire gender group. And the truth is, as women, we're completely different. We differ from our cultures, our traditions, our norms, our histories, even our oppression is different. And that's why you would be able to differentiate between a Nigerian feminist and a South African feminist, because of their histories and their cultures and their traditions and what they say is norm. So to answer your question, the manner in which feminism is defined with such strict borders that do not accommodate tradition, the fact that African culture is looked down upon as oppressive, and the fact that women who choose to be housewives are seen as less, and most importantly, the fact that cancel culture doesn't even allow us to have a broad overview on the subject of feminism, I don't think it is suited for the African narrative. Now, let's quickly chat about cancel culture. And I'm sure this is something you can relate to because it's very prevalent in our society today. The fact that someone can say something and be completely canceled for it, and someone will say the exact same thing and society will say it's okay. Unfortunately, feminists have been seen at the forefront of cancel culture. Socially charged guardians of galaxy who get to decide if we are woke and correct and good or bad, and not even capable of being seen as worthy human beings. Cancel culture associated in the feminist society is violent. It's dangerous. It weaponizes words. People are scared. People are afraid to talk, afraid to have opinions, afraid to breathe wrong in case you have the cancel culture vultures breathing at the back of your neck. The problem with cancel culture is that it stops the ability of learning, the ability of educating. And I know what you're thinking, Alma, there's Google, there are resources out there and everyone should be able to educate themselves. But when you sign up to be an activist, you sign up to educate, you sign up to empower, and you sign up to make a difference. So it is our role to keep on educating. It is our role because if we do not educate, then progress will not be made in society. Now, let's discuss the dichotomy between feminism as a concept and feminism as it relates to African women. Last year, I remember looking at 2 articles back to back, and the headlines were the horrendous effects of female genital mutilation, and the other was the German nudist culture. It was at that moment that I realized that what the West saw to be as feminism is not what I saw to be as feminism. As African women, we are fighting for so much more. We have bigger fish to fry. We're still fighting the clasps of female genital mutilation, the fact that we have children who are being sold off to child marriages. We have sex slaves. We're fighting a war here. We're fighting for our lives. We don't have time for the pleasantries of a nudist culture. We don't have time to enjoy the privileges and the perks of feminism. And so I can no longer relate to feminism. I can't relate to the nudist culture. I can't relate to any of that because what we are facing is completely different. Now, this does not mean we should wave the white flag. It doesn't mean we should accept patriarchy as the norm. Currently in South Africa, where I live, we are facing another pandemic known as gender-based violence, where a woman is raped every 30 seconds. Now, I can't discredit the victories of the feminist movement thus far. I can't discredit what the likes of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie have done for gender equality, but I think it's time we reevaluate the cause. It's time we found African solutions to African problems, because we are still 50 steps back. We're not at the level of freedoms and equality that the women in the West face, and so we cannot adopt their movements as our own. We need to find our own movements. We must remember that before colonization, before the existence of feminism, we had female matriarchs, fierce leaders who knew what to do. And we can still do that now. I recently heard the term womanism as coined by critically acclaimed author of The Color Purple. She stated that feminism did not encompass the beliefs and ideas of Black women, but womanism did. As a social construct, womanism separated itself from feminism. Feminism differentiates from womanism with 3 different levels of oppression. Feminism focuses solely on the equality of sexes, whereas womanism focuses on racism, sexism, and classism. So I think we should expand, or rather research on womanism and see what it means to us as African women as a movement that we can adopt. To end off, I come from a family of 5 with 3 girls, a mom and a dad who wanted nothing but the best for us. As a doctor and a vice chancellor, my dad has always said that education is non-negotiable. And it is for that reason that both my mom and my 2 sisters are currently completing their PhD, and I'm completing my master's degree at 22 years old. Now, my dad never yearned for a son. At no point did he ever make us feel less for being girls. In fact, the way he treated my mom, every single day, he would say that he would be nothing without her, and that he is who he is because of her, and he had to work so hard to get such a formidable woman. It's because of things like that, words like that, that we are the empowered young women that we are today. My dad was never taught feminism. In fact, I don't think he's heard the term except from me. But he was raised in a typical African home where he saw the respect for his mother and the love for his sisters and the love of God. And that was the foundation of who he was and how he raised us. And though I know it sounds cliche, but I think that's where we should start, at love, because love conquers it all, right? For the longest time, African children have not received love, do not know what it is, and do not know how to show it. And that could be one of the reasons why there is gender inequality. Love of all passions is the strongest because it works simultaneously with the mind, the heart, and the senses. So, Alma, who are you now? I'm Alma Acob, an individual who is appalled by the injustices faced by women, is an advocate for women empowerment, and believes in gender equality. Thank you.
Yay. I'm glad that I would love to hear folks' thoughts. I know we're running a little bit low on time, but I'll just say the thing that I really loved about this video is it felt, for all reasons, it's just really beautiful, but like on the like co-op tip, like I feel like it really explains how I often feel as a Black person in the co-op movement. Like, if we have like in a little bit, we're gonna talk about like what the specific principles of co-ops are according to the like International Cooperative Association, and like there are plenty of quote unquote official values that exist, right? But they weren't made for us, right? Like the official history of co-ops is like the Rochdale Pioneers, this random group of white people in the 1800s who like made this like farm co-op thing and like distilled principles from a bunch of shit. And it's just so interesting to have this to have this structure of a cooperative, right, which really is just democratic control of an organization. But when you exist in the co-op world, you often find that it's extremely white, and you often find that these values that are supposed to be universal, that are supposed to cover everyone, come off very white, and they feel super white, and they don't feel in alignment with folks. They don't feel as if they actually speak to our personal needs, to our personal values, to the ethics and the things that we're trying to do with our own organizations, right? They're very milquetoast. But and I think that sometimes makes Black folks go, oh, this isn't for me, right? I'm not gonna be here. I'm good. Like, that's not white people shit. But like, that doesn't mean, in the same way that like feminism sounds like some white shit, but that doesn't mean that we wave the white flag. Like Alma said, we don't wave the white flag. We recreate our own values. We name our own things. We decide what we need from this and what we need from somewhere else, and we create our own version of what this is that actually serves us. Yes, absolutely, Carl. Many co-ops are capitalism organized, right? There is no value that actually is anti-capitalist. Like, of the 7 official values of the International Cooperative Association, anti-capitalism is not one of them. Anti-racism is not one of them, right? And so these are the conversations that we need to be having internally about what are our actual values as individuals, and how do those values coalesce as a group, so we can really be clear on what it is we're doing and why we're here, right, as collectives. Could you go into the next slide, Lan? If you didn't already, honestly, you might have already. Yeah, next one, please. So, if you could click on the ICA for me, there's a link. Awesome. Okay, so y'all have a list of the international cooperative values, but I'll just walk through them right quick for y'all, if I can see them on this document. Right, so we have voluntary and open membership, right? We have democratic member control, we have member economic participation, we have autonomy and independence, we have education, training, and information, we have cooperation amongst cooperatives, and we have concern for community, right? And so folks feel all sorts of different ways about those as values, right? But something that I think we can all maybe agree on is that they're not very specific, right? That they can be interpreted in a lot of different ways, and co-ops across the world interpret them in lots of different ways, right? Concern for community, who is that community, right? Is your community poor Black folks? Is your community white rich folks? That means that you're gonna act entirely differently, right? Education, what are you being educated upon, right? What is your training, right? There are all of these things that I think the co-op movement as a whole coalesces around, that don't actually give us any specificity. And so I want to share some examples of some other values that folks have named in the cooperative system. So if we could go back to the slide and click on the Co-op Cooperation Jackson link. So I don't know if y'all have heard of Cooperation Jackson. They are a really dope group of Black folks out in Jackson, Mississippi. They're creating a network of cooperatives based on the needs of folks in Jackson. So that includes like farming, that includes like home and farm maintenance, that includes like security, that includes like water infrastructure. They're working on a lot of different things. But they have a set of values that is, I believe it's, what is it, 13? Let me go click on this right quick. And they have a set of values that does include some of the values from the ICA, but are entirely specific to their particular needs. So they have 13. They have 13 values, right? So that's twice as many as is already basic, right? And so it includes some of what already exists, but it also includes things like sovereignty of labor, right? Giving workers the primary control of what happens to the surpluses and how folks work. It also includes a specific phrase, instrumental and subordinated character of capital, which is kind of confusing as words, but what it basically means is that the nature of our money is that it is less important than us. We are important, and our capital is subordinate to that. So it's below that. But it's also instrumental, it's necessary for our work. And so the value specifically states that we think money is necessary for what we're doing, and we also think it is less important than the people that are here. That's a very clear and explicit value that might be implied in these 7 values, but isn't actually expressed, right? Pay solidarity, right? Internally and externally, the lowest and highest paid member shall not exceed a specific factor. That's something that you could maybe imply out of the ICA principles, but is really explicitly named in Cooperation Jackson because of the pay disparities that they deal with, especially in Mississippi, right? That's the poorest state in all of the country. And so it's really important to them that they practice wage parity. Things like social transformation, right? Social transformation is very clear and explicit value that they share. And they talk about specifically about where they're going to reinvest their money, talk about specifically the model of co-ops that they're following, right? And so you can see that even this digs into the actual nature and ethics of the work that Cooperation Jackson is doing, and might be more in alignment with what folks are thinking, but it also might not be exactly what they're thinking, right? The moral of the story really is that, like, there is no such thing as universal values. There's no such thing as that. Especially now when we're creating organizations that we are voluntarily adding ourselves to, right? We all have to collectively agree on what we think is valuable, and we have to agree to hold ourselves accountable to those values, right? The same thing with feminism, right? The conversation about we don't all agree on what feminism is. We don't all agree on what our values are, right? White Western folks have very different values than we do, right? And so when we're talking about what we are valuing and how we enact those values, it's important that we don't just import what other people do. It's important that we don't just decide, oh, okay, that's what the co-ops do. That means that's what we do. We can do anything. We can literally do anything. You can have whatever values as a cooperative that you are invested in. You can have whatever structures as a cooperative that you are invested in. There are co-ops that are structured entirely horizontally, where like there is no boss and every decision is made collectively. We all have to agree on this decision. And there are co-ops where there is a boss and everyone decided who the boss was, and that boss gets to make decisions for people because that works for some people, right? There are some places where there are some co-ops that are purposefully capitalist. Like there are co-ops for whom they believe in capitalism, and they are invested in ensuring that capital is concentrated in their community, right? There are co-ops that are actively anti-capitalist, that are actively invested in ensuring that money is not concentrated, right? All of those things are co-ops. A co-op just means one member, one vote. It just means like voluntary coming together, right? You can make this whatever you want to, whatever your collective wants to, but you all have to agree on what that is. And you all have to be clear on what you're agreeing to, right? And that's why even if you look at the page of Cooperation Jackson's values, it's a paragraph, right? There's a paragraph each on every value. It's not just 3-word phrase. It's this is what this means to us, really specifically. Yeah. Moral of the story really is just create your own values, y'all. Like the world tries to give us sets of values that they think that we should believe in, that they think are correct, right? And we often go through life sort of trying to figure out how to align with values that we've been given, and we haven't actually even decided if we align with those values, right? Like as people, like I'm not a nonviolent person, right? Like me personally, I'm not a nonviolent person. That's a value that's been taught to me my whole life that I've sort of attempted to align with before realizing that's not my value. I don't have to align with it, but I need to find people who align with me and be in that space. And so co-ops are really about creating the community that you are in alignment with and being clear on why you are in alignment so you can stay in alignment purposefully and not accidentally. And at that, I will stop and offer 8 minutes for questions.
It looks like there's a hand up from Carl.
Word.
Yes.
Carl. What's
Dominic,
up, Carl?
thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Around like, because when we're designing or implementing and looking and researching, we think these are the values that we have to like stick to, and we can't add any or take anything away. That's been always my perspective. And the other thing I wanted to say, as I've done research recently, and like like Zebra United and some other co-ops. I think Nakuli put them in the. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on the wave of like that maybe people may not understand. Like there are tons of women-led co-op development corporations right now. Like, what are your thoughts on that as we like look to the future?
My thoughts on women-led co-op development organizations?
Yeah. Like as we're talking about feminism and how we're going to how like we want to like as a male, I want to have like shared leadership and those things. Like how can we see those things like still to perpetuate in our communities as that development? Like so I'm just saying there's a plethora. I don't know if people know that there are women-led cooperative development corporations out there, and so what that looks like.
Yeah, totally. I mean, to be honest, I think especially now, like co-op development has been male dominated for a long time because like business has been male dominated. Money is for men, right? Women don't know how to do that shit. Da, 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 da. I think what has become clear, at least in the co-op world, that maybe isn't always reflected elsewhere, is that like building co-ops are about feelings. Like it's about all that woo-woo shit that people don't like. It's about feelings and emotions and all that like woo-woo like spiritual bullshit that people don't really want to talk about when you're talking about money and budget. Like it's about all of that. Because y'all can have the best budget, the most clear and accurate like pro forma and like projection, that you can have all your business together. But if your business is like you and your partner and your child, and you and your partner divorce, I don't care how good your business plan is, your business is fucked up, right? Like if your business could be fantastic, but if you and your coworkers are fighting, your shit is fucked up. If you had a bad day at home and you feel like you can't tell nobody and you come into work with all those feelings and you don't want to talk to nobody, you just sitting here, let me put my head down and do my work, da 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 da. That might work in an office. It doesn't work in a co-op because we need you to be fully engaged. We need you to be a person. We need you to be a full person. Co-ops don't work if you want a full person. And our businesses, like a regular business, relies on us not being full people. So it really is an extremely oppositional idea to come into fruition. And that's the work in my brain. Like, and I think that's why a lot of like women and non-binary folks and queer folks that sort of come up to the forefront when it comes to doing this work is because we're good at that woo-woo shit. Like, cause that's what it is. Like, to be honest, business is not that complicated. They make it way harder than it has to be. Like creating a budget, projecting your, like when you have the information and like, that is not as difficult as they make you think it is. What is really actually difficult is getting along with your people long enough to make stuff happen. That's really the difficult part. And when the money messes up, what do? Do you cuss each other out and flip a lid and leave the co-op? Or do you actually figure it out? Money might stress you out. A lot of people don't realize that money make you feel a type of way. People don't really realize a lot of times that like when we get into conversations about money, about finances, about business, and stuff starts getting hard and complicated, it's not because the actual information is complicated. It's because you're in your feelings and you haven't realized it. So often people's conversations get complex because you're in your feelings. You're in your feelings and it's messing up your brain. And so you gotta get out of your feelings. That doesn't mean ignore them. That does not mean ignore your feelings. It means work through them. It means actively decide, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? What makes me feel this way? How can those people who I'm working with help me feel differently? And you have to ask for help. You have to be willing to ask for help. You have to be willing to offer help. And you have to be willing for the process to be messy because people are messy. We think business is cut and dry because that's what the white people told us. It's not. It's never been that way. Economy is a Latin word. It means management of home. Like literally, that's what it means. Management of your home, your ecology. How do you manage your stuff? That's never been simple. Cleaning your house ain't never been easy. Feeding your kids ain't never been easy, ever. It's not going to be easy. That part is not going to be easy. And that's the part that you got to work at, right? You can find consultants and shit to help you write a budget. You can do that yourself. It's not difficult. but being willing to take the time to work through why you can't get there is the actual work, right? And so that's why your values are important, right? Because if y'all aren't on the same page about values, then fuck this, I'm out, right? It don't matter how much money we moving around. If we're not on the same page with values, I don't want to be here, right? And that's, to me, that is the magic of co-ops, is that when we can get on the same page about values, whatever we're doing is going to be beautiful. Even if the business doesn't work out, maybe we're just homies for life, but that's beautiful. Maybe like sometimes the business is not going to be it, right? That's something that I think is really important for folks in co-ops to realize, is that like, it's not a new thing, but the way that we are structuring this is so antithetical to the world that we live in that it's not always going to work. It's going to take a long time. It might stop and restart and stop and restart because the world is trying really hard not to help us succeed. But if we can collectively be committed to each other and to the practice of doing that together, then anything that we're doing is going to work out, even if it doesn't work out the first time or the second time, the third time. It's going to figure itself out because we're together and we're on the same page. And so whatever that page looks like is fine. That was my show. Any other questions before I have to go?
I don't have a question. But, go ahead.
I was just gonna acknowledge Claire and Amaranthia. They had their hand up, so maybe to them first, and then you, Nishana.
Yeah. Hi, this is Amaranthia, and I just wanted to say I love everything that you were just saying, Dominique. Like it resonated with us so much. We're mother-daughter duo. Yeah, and yeah, we started our the idea for a co-op in 2021. We didn't come up with our name, Sister Creatives Rising, until the end of about 2022. And when we were experimenting and kind of pulling things together, we noticed, like what you were saying, people coming in with a bad attitude or not communicating, or they would say they had a certain set of values that were based in feminism, and then they would come into the space and you would see their actions did not align. So we had to, this year when we did our next project, we worked with like 15 people total, but we had like a core team of about 8. And we noticed who were the people that could communicate and execute, because our system is basically, we lead it, we create a foundation, and then that's what we learned. Instead of like, hey, let everyone make a decision, people would not want to make the decision together. They would always look for us to do it,
and it would create a bottleneck.
And then it would cause delays and everything. So then what we decided to do was, let's create a foundation, let's have open discussion, people go off and do their work, bring their own creativity and ideas, come back to us, and then we tweak and tweak. And what we found was that the people who communicated well were the ones that we definitely want to work with again. Like they would come to us and be like, hey, I need help, or oh, I didn't like when this happened, or this is something you did that I don't agree with. And we would always come to have a meeting or a discussion where, okay, let's figure it out, let's come to a common ground. We'd notice people who would come into a space that we would kind of scout and say, do we want to work with this person? Maybe for the next event. And they would come in and take up the space from everyone else in the room. And they would be talking. You couldn't interrupt them. So we'd realize, okay, this is not someone who values other people's time or centers themselves. So we had to like keep refining. And I would say now we have probably 5 people now.
4 people.
5 core people we're going to be working with
that are reliable.
They'll come to us, they'll communicate, they'll say what they need, they'll say what they don't need, especially when it comes to disability accessibility, because we work with mostly disabled people. So if we had people that wouldn't say what their needs were, it would put us in a bad position. It would mess up everything. So it's more of a comment, but I just really appreciate you breaking that down and showing that the different versions of cooperatives and the importance of having the team that says what they need. They hold themselves accountable, we hold ourselves accountable, and we can have open conversation. If you don't have that, everything falls apart. You can't do anything.
And it's hard. Like, it's not easy to like know yourself enough to ask for those things. Like, it's not like if you don't do it, you're bad. But like I constantly have trouble being like, oh, I'm upset. It takes me after 20 minutes after meeting, oh, why am I still feeling a type of way? Oh, that phrase didn't land well. oh, am I gonna text my coworker? Oh, that feels weird. I gotta go through all the things. And then 2 days later, let me text this person, hey, that felt kind of weird. Can we talk about it? And then it's over in 2 minutes, right? But it took me 3 days to get to the point to ask for the thing that I needed, right? And that's not uncommon. Like I said, the world tries really, really hard to make us not believe ourselves. Like the reason that part is so hard is because our whole society puts so much effort into making us not understand our own feelings, not think about our own feelings, not be present in our bodies, like do all of the things that they tell you to do. And it feels impossible, right? And it feels like you're in the way. It feels like, oh, well, we're talking about business. I don't want to bring feelings into it. Oh, we're not talking about that right now, but we're talking about all of it. And it's work, but like thank you so much for sharing that, because like that process, that's what it is. Yeah. You get 15 people. Sometimes none of them work. You got to fire everybody and start over. And sometimes that's what, like, it is what it is. It takes the time to find the real people.
Exactly. And the whole thing about spiritual practice is so important, because at the end of the day, when all that shit is hitting the fan, you have to have a place to go to fix yourself and to get out of your feelings. And for us, a spiritual practice is very, very important for us, because that's when all the stuff happens that is very difficult for us. We go into that space.
Especially if you're working with people that are coming from trauma. They're coming from
a lot of trauma.
Most of the people we work with have a mental illness, or they have a physical disability, a chronic illness, or all three.
Yeah.
And so when you're working with people that way, they bring a lot of their baggage in. And then as someone with invisible disabilities, we have it too. So we have to figure out, okay,
which is theirs and which is ours, and
how do we work it out?
Yeah.
And how that can hinder communication. So being patient with people.
That's right. Thank you.
But yes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank y'all. One more question before I gotta bounce. Also, if there are other things, y'all can just you can share my information and folks can reach out to me. I'm happy to do that. But yeah, any more questions before I dip?
Yeah, I think Nashana unmuted.
I just wanted to say thank you. That was the realest thing, you could have ever said. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like at the beginning of the video I was gonna actually speak to give some feedback to the video, but I'm gonna save that. Maybe I'll send an email or something. But more so speaking on the co-ops and the different groups. I think co-ops exist in multiple places, not just like in the community settings. I see co-ops in like the entertainment industry, in the media industry. I could see co-ops, for example, a co-op to me in a way just mean any group of people with a set agenda, which I think should be to overcome adversity or improve the livelihood of people within the community. But some co-ops have an agenda for people within the community, and it's not always good. For example, like for me in the entertainment industry, a co-op could be like Sexy Red and City Girls. They have an agenda, right, for our community as a whole. Or for example, the media and television is a Ray and Lena Wave. They have an agenda for our community, whether it's a good one or a bad one, but it's to change the trajectory of how things look. And it goes back to the values, and it goes back to your personal values. Like when creating a co-op, each individual, I understand where you come from when you say values. I was just at a conference yesterday where we were with teenage youth, and we were talking about values. And these kids in SIA, Students in Action, they were talking about their individual values and how their values are brought to the table. So it all starts when dealing with a co-op. It all starts with your values. What are your values as a person individually? So when Dominique, when you said, what are your values? If my values are respect, family, if my value is time management, if my value, like, what are the things that when you talk about values, you got to kind of break it down to people that are not completely educated, who don't have college degrees, and what means the most to you in your life. Like, what do you value? So if you decide to get into a co-op with people who don't have the same shared values, they're not going to be able to be useful with creating or coming up with outcome that's going to be beneficial to a lot of people. And, you know, to sum all this up, I want to just say that one piece that a lot of co-ops forget is relationship building. I think it's so important to add on to what you said, Dominique, because it really moved me what you said, just the realness to it. You know, I appreciate that realness, you know, but I could see myself in your tribe, right? But I think the relationship building is what's most important. Like before, I think all co-ops should start off with relationship building and team building so that you can identify who is in your tribe that has the same shared values. Why get on a co-op? Most people get in co-ops not just in the nonprofit or community sector, but even in the entertainment, and things don't work out, and we don't never get to an outcome because people don't have shared values, because you skip one of the most important steps, which is relationship building. And if you're doing relationship building and skills building, team building, that's the space where you can identify who has shared values and who to eliminate. And half the time you won't even have to eliminate, because then people gonna be feeling uncomfortable within that group of people, because they're gonna feel like, you know what, this is not my tribe. So I think it's important in any co-op, whether it's in community, whether it's in finance, entertainment, whatever your co-op space is, relationship building and finding out whether values exist among the different people, because we have to understand that we all come from different tribes. Our ancestors come from different tribes. No matter what country you come from, whether it's America, whether it's from Africa, wherever you're from, in our past, they were all tribes exist. And tribes exist for a reason, because everybody had different values. We all look the same. We all look the same, but we have different values. Each tribe have their own values, and everybody that looks the same, all skin folk and kin folks. So you gotta find your own tribe, and that's the only way your outcomes and the things in your mission is going to work, and build those relationships so that you can wing out those folks that's not for you before you start making plans. That's how you eliminate the opposition and can find some type of results from the work that you're doing, you know. But yeah, that's
so you gonna teach the class next time?
Right. Continue, just preach. Let's go. The space is open.
Okay, I really gotta run, y'all. I'm so sorry.
Thank you so much,
I
Dominique.
appreciate y'all so much. This was so great. Please feel free to reach out to me. They'll share my contact. Y'all are all beautiful. Can't wait to see what y'all gonna be doing out here in these streets. Much love.
Peace. Thank you.
You're still moving.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that
For
was
real. Had us fired up. Yes.
Yeah, that was really beautiful. Yep. I'm still, I think, processing myself, because I feel like North Star went to church for a second, so I'm trying.
There you go. My energy.
I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry, y'all. I just sit back and I listen, because I'm in these different spaces. I'm in, you know what, and not to take up more time, but you know, I just removed myself from a really large co-op group that was within the community, and I just noticed it, just like as a Black person, like I'm really happy to be here. Like when the mother duo, you know, was just speaking, and the mama, she cursed, like that moved me, not because I like to hear people cursing, but I like to hear people being real. And I come from spaces where, you know, people with degrees, you know, you got to turn your what is it called? People, you know, they turn their Blackness off, you know, so that they could be politically correct. And I had to be in that space, and it left me crippled. You know, I had to refine myself again, because I felt like in order for me to become a successful Black woman within the community to do great work, I had to code switch all the time, and it crippled me, you know, because I wasn't who I was. And then when I started working in spaces that were Black co-ops that had shared values, you know, I went to a meeting with Black folks that had shared values, and they had fried chicken and coleslaw and lemonade and things like that at the meeting. Just those small little things, going from coffees and donut holes. It's just the small things that's different, and it's just like a different feeling when you amongst your people and you have those shared values. So I think that small piece of values is so important when it comes to co-op groups. So I think this was a really great topic. I learned a lot today, and it was a reflection on some of my own personal experiences. Just, having 11 years in those shared spaces with people that did not have shared values. When you don't have values with the people in your co-op, it can leave you feeling debilitated. It can leave you feeling like you don't know your self-worth because you're not being heard and you're not being understood, and those sorts of things. I don't want to take up too much time, but yeah, values are important in co-ops.
Yeah, absolutely, and always. We're gonna leave some time for you also have time to regroup in some small groups and continue to having some of this conversation. Just looking at time, what works for you, Liana?
I'm good for us to we can do okay, I guess open it up to the group. What feels good in terms of doing a bit deeper reflection with small groups? Thinking like 10 minutes, just to hold space for more conversation. I was actually thinking making them even smaller, like more pair share. Besides you, Amaranthi and Claire, you would be in a group of 3, but really just getting to maybe talk to one person just to get that space, just to reflect. Let's see, looking at the chat. Okay, so maybe let's see, we can do, how about we do 12 minutes? I'm kind of just feeling it out. We'll bring you back when we feel like there's time. So it'll be a pair share time to just continue these rich discussions we're having. And then there'll be just a little bit of time at the end for the survey. So that's what I'm trying to manage. But yeah, we can continue having these conversations. You'll be assigned shortly. I think I set it up. Yep. All right, so I'm gonna open, yes, we can do that. Okay, I'll try to make sure I do a 3-minute check and maybe halfway, but I'm gonna open the room so there's time. We'll go until let's say 7. Sorry, I'm in another time zone. I haven't said that. I'll name that at the end. We'll go till about 1:50, so we can just have the last 10 minutes. So 1:50, opening the rooms now.
Oh, not my forehead being the first thing you see, sis.
I'm screaming. Wait, what's going on? Are we back?
Sorry, y'all. We try not to yank y'all out like that, but I hope those were rich reflections and discussions. If anybody does want to say anything briefly that came up, feel free. I'm gonna drop also the next bit, our survey, just to get your feedback. So that link will be in the chat for you to do that now. But anyone who would like to share anything can do so right now as well. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so Tanika and I were kind of talking about electoral politics, and like having our voices feel heard and stuff. And then we stumbled on the conversation about like how specifically like, because yes, I do believe in voting in like state politics specifically. I do think like it's important to figure out like who your judges are, because depending on whether or not you're gonna commit a crime, that's gonna be the person who's gonna send you to the big house, basically. Or like voting for like council members and things. And I was talking about like, well, I'm wondering about they follow through sometimes, especially in regards to like career politicians. And also like the Democrats have a long history of imperialism, you feel me? So And then I was doing some research and I found an organization, it's called like the National War Tax Resistance Committee, where basically it provides like step-by-steps instructions to like not pay like those federal taxes that are being sent overseas to like essentially demolish, Africa and the Middle East, right? And then I was gonna send that link in there. But yeah.
That's interesting. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? No pressure. Thanks for dropping that link, Venus. Ooh, let me get that.
And I just shared with her that there are ways that we can get involved in local politics, which I think all of it aligns, because I think that we need politicians in our state to represent us that understand, because I mean, we don't fall in the small business, right, category a lot of the times. And we need representatives that are going to represent us in a way that, aligns with us. But there are organizations that you can get into. And she brought up specific issues that were important to her. There are organizations that you can join that are about housing, homelessness, healthcare, and they back politicians who are aligned with their values. So that's just a food for thought.
Thank you. I was just gonna, close that out by saying, I mean, I think that's a very important conversation, especially when we're talking about like cooperative organizing and how we want to see ourselves represented. And just like naming, the city of St. Paul is through a long relationship building with Mayor Carter and the Office of Financial Empowerment now has like a cooperative. They're using the American Rescue Plan funds to help fund upcoming cooperatives in St. Paul. And so just that there is a lot of power in like local representation and like what that means policy-wide, especially when extending initiatives that are for cooperatives or businesses or etc. So just wanted to name that as well. There's a similar program in the city of Minneapolis, the Cooperative Technical Assistance Program, but it's not as robust. Maybe I'm being biased, I don't know. But yeah, I think when you look at other states too, like Wisconsin, New York, California, there've been really amazing cooperative initiatives that come with like $1 million funding initiatives too when trying to elevate this work. And so I have to double check what the name is. I might email that one out. I just know that it was it's managed by the Office of Financial Empowerment. But anything else around cooperatives and principles and thinking about the principles or values that you want to see reflected in your cooperative?
Well, I'll go. I really like the point everyone was making about making sure that your co-op members have the same values, and how sometimes your values won't be aligned. And we kind of also, me and Venus, talked about how if you have value and respect for each other as co-op members, you can go into a situation or a disagreement and still come out feeling seen, heard, and respected. And, I think that's powerful, because if we're coming together to build something, it's going to be messy. Like she said, you're going to have to stop and start, and you might have to pivot a little bit. And so I think just having like-minded people along the ride with you is going to make your vision and your co-op really good, because the main goal is that it's for community. And that's why we want it to be the best that it can be for community.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Tanika. Anika Bui, NACA is the National Affordable Housing Membership Organization that organizes public officials on sustainable funding for home ownership. They don't go off credit score. They use character assessment to give down payment grants towards ownership. Thanks for sharing that too, Anika. All right. Has everyone had the chance to go through the survey that Liana posted in the chat? Just reposting it again, because we do read through those and we do make adjustments based on your feedback. We want to make sure that the sessions reflect like what you want to see in the space, and so those are really important to us.
And
And
feel to finish it maybe sooner if you can't do it right in this moment, but just trying to hold space for that right now. Thank you.
And we talked about a lot of things today. So I hope you are able to get some time to take a breath before moving on to the next thing. Our next session will be December 2nd. Like I said in the beginning of the fellowship, we really spend the first few months grounding ourselves in this cooperative work and the foundational pieces. And so with storytelling, Black feminisms and values and principles, and then moving on to rethinking capitalism with Dr. Rose Brewer, who basically just handles that whole session in December. But as well, so we also have a Black Study session. Black Study sessions are spaces where we get to like open up North Star to community. It's still Black centered. So all of you, it would be wonderful if you were there. And then, yeah, like I said, it's open to community members too. So there'll be folks joining us from wherever. And if you have other cooperative members that are maybe not participating in the fellowship and you'd like them to be there, that's a space to plug in. The Black Study session is on the 6th of December, Wednesday from 5 to 7. And then our third session is December 2nd, that Saturday from 10 to 2. And we'll be talking about Kwanzaa and cooperation with some guests of Kenna Cotman from Voice of Culture and Miss TT from, why am I forgetting? This is, yeah. And sorry, Liana, actually, you should be talking about that. I'll step back for a second if you have anything to add.
It's all right. Yeah, so we'll be basically they'll be leading us through a Kwanzaa observance, essentially getting to participate, prepare, and connect with things that are important to us, how we might prepare for the season, the values that we have. So it'll be a really rich, interactive time. Yeah, and then they have a Kwanzaa celebration the following week that we will share with folks to hopefully get to join that if you're local, can experience that as well. So we are near our time. Just want to thank everyone for being here, holding space, and just wishing you a good rest of your day, weekend, until the next time we gather. Peace, everyone. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.